Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today to talk about Zimbabwe and Imvelo Safaris Lodges. Thank you for your patience as we waited for a few more people to join us. I just returned from about 10 days exploring Zimbabwe with Imvelo. This is my third trip to Zim, second time to Hwange. I've made 3 trips to Victoria Falls, and in all cases I have come back absolutely blown away, energized, and excited about the opportunities for safari in Zimbabwe. Just going to check and make sure everybody here is able to hear. No issues with the audio. It looks like all is good. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will take questions or I'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. And then also, obviously, if we run out of time, I'll be happy to send answers to you via email. And you can certainly, if you have to head out early because we're getting long, I will send out a recording of the webinar to all of the attendees that you can then watch and re-watch at your convenience down the road. Mark Butcher, the founder and director of Imvelo Safaris, is also going to be attempting to join us from Hwange National Park, and Mark will chime in as he is able to, given the limitations of the Wi-Fi in Hwange. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Hwange, which you'll hear a lot more about, famous for its amazing herds of elephants, and this is just one of the many beautiful shots of the incredible herds that you will see when visiting Hwange National Park. Currently, there are estimates of over 40 to 45,000 elephants in Hwange National Park. Absolutely incredible wildlife viewing, especially for elephants. Imvelo Safaris, as you can see in the logo to the bottom right, comprises 5 properties at the moment, with a 6th on the way. Bomani Tented Lodge, Camelthorn Lodge, and brand new to the portfolio, Nehimba Lodge in Hwange National Park, and Gorges Lodge and Zambezi Sands River Camp in the Victoria Falls area. I'm going to start with a little bit of geography, although I think you're all in the travel business, so I'm sure you are pretty aware of where Zimbabwe is. Just point of note that there's a new airport that will be opening, or an upgraded airport that will be opening in Victoria Falls later this year. I think the estimate is in July. We'll see how whether that pans out. But that will open things up potentially to international flights directly into Victoria Falls. Currently, the most common routing is, of course, through Johannesburg, with the connection there in Joburg up to Victoria Falls, about an hour and a half, 2-hour flight. Other options are to fly into Bulawayo as well. And basically, Hwange and our lodges in Hwange are equidistant between the Victoria Falls Airport and Bulawayo. So if you have clients that are going to start with safari in Hwange, either Bulawayo or Victoria Falls is a fine option for arrival. Here's a little bit of a zoom in on Zimbabwe. Of course, in the old days, there was a wonderful circuit, milk run. Zimbabwe Airlines was doing a milk run from Hwange to Ghana-Rizal up to Mana Pools, Matusadana, and Lake Kariba in Victoria Falls. That is, of course, not in existence any longer. However, the combination of Hwange and Victoria Falls is an excellent one because of the fact that you can do it all via vehicle. You can drive between the 2 locations very easily, 3 to 4 hours between Vic Falls and the lodges in Hwange Park. Adding on to that circuit is certainly doable. Matobo National Park near Bulawayo, where one of the last remaining rhinos, sadly, in Zimbabwe are. And then Mana, of course, is a World Heritage Site, in effect, addition to any safari. I think Butch, you may have joined us. Can you hear us, Butch?
I can, Ted. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can, very loud and clear. Thank you for joining us. Tell us where you are currently in Hwange.
I'm actually at Bomani Tented Lodge. We just come back in from a game drive. We were looking at elephants and lion. Had a wonderful game drive here, late green season. But you seem to have the bit firmly between your teeth there, Ted. Carry on. Good evening, everybody else. Good evening to you.
Thanks, Butch. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Just I'll unmute you when it's your time to shine, but just to keep it quieter on your end, I'll keep you on mute, and we'll bring you in for commentary as the occasion arises. So thanks for joining us from Bomani. So moving on here, this is the area that Imvelo Safaris has focused on their circuit. So Victoria Falls and the Hwange National Park area. Currently, all 6 properties are in this region, and again, it really can put together a fantastic comprehensive safari just through those 2 regions. We're going to start in Victoria Falls, which is really, generally speaking, the gateway for a Zimbabwe safari. Gorges Lodge was the first property that Imvelo built back in 1996. It was the first community-based tourism project, first lodge built on community-owned land back in the 90s, and it still to this day is one of the largest, if not the largest, community-based tourism projects in the country. The others that would compete for that prize would be Chilo Gorge, Clive Stockhill's wonderful property down in Ghana Razar area, or Camelthorn Lodge, which is the other Imvelo property in Hwange National Park. Just to orient yourself a little bit in Victoria Falls, here's the airport if you look at my mouse on the screen. Gorges Lodge is about 30 minutes from the airport, as well as 30 minutes from the Victoria Falls town, located right on the edge of the Batoka Gorge. Of course, here's the falls. As all the Zimbabweans will tell you, the falls are really the most viewed most spectacularly from the Zimbabwe side. And you can see the Victoria Falls Bridge there, which is that view from the Victoria Falls Hotel, the famous railroad built by Cecil Rhodes at the turn of the 20th century. This is a view if you were in a helicopter above Gorges, looking back 11, 12 kilometers toward the falls. You can see the spray of the falls there from the Gorges area. And coming down, well, I guess looking down directly on the lodge, it's absolutely spectacular, located on the precipice, this 900 feet above the Zambezi River on the beautiful Batoka Gorge. And there's a shot looking down the gorge. This is for those of you that have rafted the Zambezi. They are on about rapid 19 or 20, so toward the end of the rafting circuit. And in fact, if you have people rafting, they can actually do the takeout. It's just beyond the lodge, and they can be doing sundowners or having a drink after a harrowing rafting experience on the deck of Gorges within about 20 minutes to a half an hour. Beautiful sunrise shot over the Batoka Gorge from the main lodge area, from the bar area of the lodge. One of the real unique features of Gorges, beyond the fact that it is built on community land and all of the lease fees go toward the community, toward improving the villages around the lodge, toward investing in schools, investing in water wells, investing in the local community versus going to the central government in Harare. But beyond that big feature, the other one that's really unique is the fact that they have this spectacular, lush indigenous gardens that have grown up here since the lodge was built over 20 years ago. Beautiful place to spend an afternoon in the cool shade beneath these beautiful trees and the lush gardens, reading a book, having a drink, looking at the view over the Batoka Gorge. There are 10 stone and thatch chalets at Gorges. The lodge is about 30 to 40 minutes, as I said, from Victoria Falls town or from the airport. The nice thing about that location is it is away from all of the helicopter traffic. So for those that are a little concerned about the hectic pace of Victoria Falls town, there's a lot going on in the town for sure, and who maybe get tired of the sound of the helicopters doing the flight of the angels in never-ending loops. Gorges is a great alternative. It gets you away from the hectic pace and away from the helicopters and sets you in a beautiful location. Probably, Mark Butcher often says, one of the most beautiful views, if not the most beautiful view in Southern Africa, that view of the gorge 900 feet up. 2 included activities per day when staying at Gorges. We'll tell you about those, as well as 2 transfers back into town. There is Wi-Fi, a swimming pool, and the rates, and you'll see throughout this presentation, the rates for Imvelo Lodges currently are just incredibly competitive. $317 rack rate that's inclusive for Gorges in 2015. 6 out of the 10 rooms have recently been renovated, refurbed, basically rebuilt, as Butch will tell you. It started out as a refurb and turned into a rebuild, completely gutted. All of the chalets, they were built in the 90s and survived the 2000 years when tourism collapsed by basically operating as a B&B for South African travelers, and so definitely needed a little bit of a refresh, and as you can see, it's been really beautifully updated. Several different configurations, but all of them face that spectacular view of the gorge, the Patoka Gorge there, with a deck overlooking the gorge where you can have your coffee in the morning or a glass of wine in the evening and just enjoy the view. That's the sunset view that you saw earlier. You would look out to the right down the gorge and watch the sunrise over the gorge there. It's absolutely spectacular. Brand new bathrooms, completely gutted as well. Huge double showers, double vanities. It's really a very major improvement from when I saw it 2.5 years ago on my first visit to Zimbabwe. Here's the configuration of the lodge. You can see the 10 rooms with the main lodge in the middle. Several of them are double stories, which are good for families. Generally speaking, at Gorges, because of that fact that it's on the gorge 900 feet down, we recommend at least 7 or 8 and up, and it just of course depends on the behavior of children. But in point of fact, there is really very difficult to fall off the edge of that gorge. It cascades down in several different layers, so you aren't going to just immediately step off and fall 900 feet. So that said, I think it's important for you when selling gorges to be aware that there is that consideration given the gorge there. And I would really say 8 to 10 and up is what we would recommend. But those 2-story family units are fantastic. They have a bedroom downstairs with a bath, and then a larger room on the second story. Those 4 are the last to be upgraded, and they will be done by the end of 2015. There's no wildlife at Gorges, just to be aware as well. It's set in community land. It's not in the national park. However, there are incredible birds of prey. One of the included activities is the black eagle interaction, and this is one of the shots of the incredible black eagles that soar throughout the gorge. You get these like dog fights between different black eagles and falcons, a variety of different birds that are angling for superiority in the gorge. There's currently a nesting pair of black eagles, and they fly incredibly close, as you can see right there in that shot, to the this is the bar area of Gorges. So it's like going to an air show and watching these eagles dogfight and soar above you. It's an incredible experience. So for the birders, Gorges is a must. And this black eagle interaction happens every night around 4 p.m. And the birding, unless the winds are incredibly still, it is almost guaranteed that you'll have this opportunity to interact and photograph black eagles at such a close vantage point. Victoria Falls, of course, is an included activity, a tour of the falls, shopping in the Curio Village. That's included in that $317 rack rate. As I said, this is a community-based lodge on community land, so visiting one of the local villages that benefits and is really owners of this lodge is an important activity and one that we always recommend to clients. Richmond there in that picture is from a product of the local village, and these are unchoreographed visits. This isn't something where you go into a cultural show. It's just daily life in the local village, and it's spontaneous. There isn't a set routine or itinerary. Basically, one day Richmond may take you to his grandmother's house, who's weaving baskets like you see here. The next day, if his grandfather is plowing the fields, you get to go and see how that is done in a Zimbabwean village. So very real, authentic, and unchoreographed village experience. Almost always includes a visit to the local school, where it's important. I think the headmasters and the students and the teachers really appreciate having international visitors. For one thing, it kind of demystifies the international visitor from an alien who flies by on an airplane or in a minibus to a real live flesh and blood person, and then gives them some understanding of where these people are coming from. This guy is from somewhere in Europe, I think Stockholm, and he's pointing out on the map where that is. And how we got to Zimbabwe. So again, real authentic, unchoreographed experiences in the local villages. A sundowner cruise is also included as one of your activities, optional activities, and we use the smaller boats, not the big booze cruise boats. We have a cultural show most nights, and this is actually, again, a couple of local guys 5 or 6 years ago came to the managers of Gorges and said, hey, we want to put on a dance performance featuring traditional Matabele dances, which is, Matabele is actually related to the Zulu, so similar style of cultural dance. And so they began to do this, and it's really it's a lot of fun. It's not, again, a luau type experience. It's really very interactive. The guys are incredible and very talented and a lot of fun. So this is something that the guests really enjoy, and again, it's almost a nightly event, and certainly if they stay 2 nights, they'll experience it. Optional activities, of course, all the adventure activities in Vic Falls, the rafting being one of the most popular, but the zip lining, flight of angels, things of that sort, those are all optional and not included in that $317 rate. Some exciting news upcoming here in the next 3 or 4 or 5 months at the opening of Little Gorges, as it's currently known. It is a 5 luxury tents just down the Batoka Gorge from Gorges Lodge. This is the view, actually, the sunrise view from tent number 5. Spectacular, as you can see. You can imagine sitting in your tent watching the sunrise directly in front of you looking down the gorge. It's going to be a private camp. People can participate in the activities at Gorges, for example, the Black Eagle interaction or the cultural show, but it also can be booked exclusively for a group of 10, for example, or can be booked on an FIT basis. The pricing for 2015 at least will be in line with Gorges, so again, an incredible value at $317 rack. And we'll keep you posted through emails on how this develops and what the tents will look like. But they're going to be quite large, and obviously from a view standpoint and a location standpoint, absolutely incredible. So moving from the Batoka Gorge downstream of Victoria Falls, we're going to head upstream about an hour to Zambezi Sands, which is one of the newest properties that Imvelo opened end of last summer, August in 2014. You can see again just an orientation. Here's the airport. If you follow my mouse, Victoria Falls town. Zambezi Sands River Camp is upstream of the falls. It is, for those of you that know the area well, it's not quite as far as Matetse, the old and beyond property. It is actually almost nearly across the river on the Zambian side from islands of Siankala. So to orient yourself for some well-known properties. So from Victoria Falls town, you head out on the Kasane Road, and at about the 16-kilometer peg, this is where the transfer into Zambezi National Park. So this is the heart of Zambezi National Park, located right on the Zambezi River. It takes about an hour from town currently, and but the point of that fact is that it's a large majority of that hour is actually spent as a game drive through Zambezi National Park, which the game there is certainly not Hwange, but it actually is quite good. We had almost daily interactions with large elephant herds coming from the river, and certainly during the dry season, as the elephants migrate toward the Zambezi River, those elephant herds get larger, and just in generally speaking, there's more and more wildlife along the river. We've had cheetah sighted there. Lions are a relatively regular occurrence. Buffalo, giraffe. So it is a pretty good game experience, but again, not something that you'd want to sell as a game experience first and foremost at this time. Located again on the Zimbabwe side in the Zambezi National Park, so there are no villages in the area. It is very peaceful, located right in the Simba Islands. So you actually have a buffer between the main river with a number of beautiful and tranquil channels. There's a rapid there you can see on the right-hand side of your screen in that photo that actually provides this incredible white noise for the camp. So for sleeping and just for the general enjoyment of the tranquility of the area, it's wonderful and very peaceful. Here's a shot of the main lodge. It's for those of you that know Victoria Falls, these tents that we put up here are very similar in size and style to Elephant Camp, located in Vic Falls. So massive tents, beautiful luxury tented tented accommodations, and then this very large deck and viewing area of the Zambezi River. Here's the interior of the main tent with the bar area, the lounge area, and then these are the accommodations. There are 8 of these luxury tents that are absolutely massive. You have a sleeping area and bathroom on the left-hand side there, and then a lounge area, private lounge area, and this incredibly large deck with a private plunge pool, all of which face and look out toward the Zambezi River, the channels coming between the river and the Nehimba Islands. There's a large bathtub and vanity inside the tent, and then outdoor shower and outdoor toilet just connected there, so you have a great view of the Zambezi taking your shower. As I said, 8 luxury tents. There is a family tent that will be built probably by the end of 2015. It will have 2 living areas, both en suite. I'm sorry, 2 bedrooms, both en suite, with a common living area lounge, and that's going to make this, just a really fantastic option for family groups or for 2 couples traveling together. 60 minutes from Vic Falls, again, completely out of the range of helicopters. You don't see any other boats coming by because you are separated from the main channel by those Nehimba Islands. So it is very exclusive, very private, very quiet. You have a private plunge pool on your deck. Again, same as Gorges, 2 included activities, the same activities. There is Wi-Fi in the main lodge, and the rack rate currently $532 for 2015, but we have a stay 3, pay 2 for the remainder of 2015. So that knocks that rate down into the $350 range. So an incredible value for really a 5-star luxury tented accommodation. This is the layout, as you can see, with the main lodge. In between, the family tent will most likely go on the right side of number 1. So that is still to be confirmed, but it will be laid out along the river as are the other tents. Incredible food there, probably the best food of all the properties. They have an amazing chef who had previously trained in South Africa, worked at Imvelo Lodge in the Vic Falls area. Frankie, he's a fantastic guy and an amazing chef. Do a lot of bush dinners, bush breakfasts. This is a champagne breakfast that we did on the trip about 10 days ago, and a lot of private bush dinners as well. It's a great honeymoon property, very romantic and very private. Someplace that couples and honeymooners can really, they can spend nearly their entire day in those massive tents because they are so big. They have their own private plunge pool and deck there, and it is a real feeling of exclusivity and serenity. So a lot of people that come to Vic Falls actually end up deciding they want to have most of their meals on their private deck and just really have this very exclusive experience. So that makes it perfect for honeymooners. Obviously, the river is the main attraction in this area. Activities in the river, birding on the river, wildlife viewing from the river. You've got hippos and crocs, sundowner cruise from the lodge. So we do that as an included activity. It's directly from the lodge itself onto the Zambezi. There's also canoeing. We use the duckies, which are actually safer than the old fiberglass canoes because they have 6 compartments, so that if there was something to occur and one of those was punctured, you actually have 5 more to keep you afloat to get you to the shore. So I was actually surprised to hear that inflatable canoes or kayaks would be safer, but the new technology that has been put in place really makes them the preferred option. There are easy channels that you can do on a couple of hour canoe safari, and then for those that are a little bit more adventurous, there are those rapids that I spoke of, and those are navigable just about 12 months out of the year for those that have a little bit more adventure in them, a little bit more skill. This is a good option as well for those who want to do a canoe activity but maybe don't have the time or the budget to fly all the way up to Mana pools. Mana's a 2.5-hour charter flight today. That old Zimbabwean milk run, as I said back in the 90s, doesn't exist. So you have to charter a flight up there, and those can be expensive, anywhere from $700 to $1,000 seat and plane rate, and then that 2.5-hour time slot. Certainly, this doesn't compare to the canoeing opportunities that you have in Monopool. But for that guest, again, that just wants to get a taste of it, have a couple of hours, do a half-day activity, it's a great option. And you aren't going to see very many, if any, other boats out in this area because of the fact that you're sheltered by the sea and Nehimba Islands, and you are removed from the hustle and the bustle of the Victoria Falls proper area right around the falls. You can do canoeing as well, then you stop at one of the sea and Nehimba Islands and do a walk on the island as well. So combining walking and canoeing is a great option for the adventurous clients that you have. We are in the national park, Zambezi National Park, so great game drives available. As I said, as the dry season gets into its peak, it's a great place to game view right along the river as the large herds of elephants that are migrating from all over the region, from Hwange, from Botswana, come toward that and come to drink on the Zambezi River. And of course, along with that comes a lot of plains game, and comes your predators, your lions, and your cheetah. There are leopard in the area, but they're very hard to spot. They're still very skittish. As the game begins to habituate in the Zambezi Sands area, the game viewing will definitely improve, especially during the peak of the dry season. But again, this is really more about an alternative to the hustle and bustle of Vic Falls, to an exclusive, serene Vic Falls experience versus a game viewing experience. Really, you want to sell the game viewing in Hwange, and this is, any game that you see in Zambezi Sands National Park is a bonus. You can also do walks, of course. Zimbabwean pro guides, considered some of the best in Africa, and certainly have one of, if not probably the most rigorous training program on the continent. So walking is a must if you're going to Zimbabwe, and the Zambezi Sands National Park is actually a great place to do that. Visiting the falls is also an included activity. Again, that's an hour drive into town. As Butch says, a great Zambezi Sands day, we're actually using it in many cases as a finisher to the safari. So people may have started their safari in Vic Falls, staying at the Victoria Falls Safari Lodge, or Victoria Falls Hotel, or the Victoria Falls Safari Lodge, or Gorges, head off onto safari in Hwange, and then finish with 2 or 3 nights at Zambezi Sands as a really kind of nice way to finish off a great Zimbabwe safari with a serene, peaceful, exclusive experience. And a good Zambezi Sands day is, instead of waking up at 5:30 like you've been doing on safari for the past 3 or 4, 5 days, is to have a little bit of a sleep in, have breakfast, head off on a game drive through the park, and then on to Victoria Falls, do a tour, maybe have lunch at the Victoria Falls Hotel if you haven't had that experience, and then head back to the lodge for an afternoon siesta, time in the plunge pool, relaxation, and then do an afternoon activity, whether that's canoeing or walking or a sundowner cruise. That's a really nice kind of relaxing way to finish off a safari in Zimbabwe. There is fishing. Tiger fishing is okay. This is definitely, again, not something you don't sell Zambezi Sands or, frankly, the upper Zambezi as a tiger fish destination. But toward August, September, October, you can definitely bring in a few tiger fish. And I went tiger fishing last week when I was there. We didn't catch anything, but it was just a fun activity to be out on the water, to be exploring those channels in a boat as you're casting for fish. So even if nothing is caught, it still is a really a nice experience to have on the river. Something new that we're offering is a helicopter transfer from Victoria Falls Hotel to Zambezi Sands River Camp. This is running at about $800 and some odd for 6-pack, and it's divided out, by 6. So with a group of 6, it's very reasonable. The Flight of Angels over Victoria Falls runs from $150 to $200. So this does the same thing from Victoria Falls up and over Flight of Angels over the falls, and then flies up to Zambezi Sands. There's a helipad that's very close to camp when there is nobody in camp. Let's say you have a group that's taking over the camp. Or if there are other guests in camp, we have a helipad that's farther away. So this would be probably the only helicopter guests would ever hear when at Zambezi Sands, because again, it's so far removed from those helicopters around the falls. But this is a really nice option for high-end packs or for groups that want to have an incredible way to arrive at their camp. So going from Victoria Falls now down into Hwange, Hwange National Park, 5,000 square miles. It's an absolutely massive national park, largest in Zimbabwe, and it's known as a place for elephants. 45,000+ elephants. At the height of the peak season at both Nehimba and Bomani and Camelthorn Lodge, you can see upwards of 500 elephants a day. Absolutely incredible wildlife experience. If you have elephant lovers, that's their thing is to see elephants, then Hwange is an absolute must. Nehimba Lodge has been around for a couple of years, and Imvelo just, in fact, purchased it about a month ago. So it's a brand new addition to the Imvelo portfolio. It's located here, looking at this map, again, to give you some orientation, coming from the Falls Road. Here's actually the road from the Falls down into the main camp area here, Hwange Main Camp. This is that town where the railroads are based. So from Victoria Falls town down the main tarmac road to Hwange Main Camp is about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. And from Hwange Main Camp out to Nehimba Lodge here in the northern part of Hwange is another 2 hours. So you're talking anywhere from 3 to 4 hours depending on this game drive. This is a good 2-hour game drive through the heart of the northern part of the park. What sets Nehimba apart is the fact that it is located in the north. It's a very different landscape to the southern part of the park, which makes it something that you can definitely combine with the Imvelo properties in the south, Bomani and Camelthorn. The north of Hwange is much more rocky. You have big, large kopis, big granite hills and valleys of mopani trees, and these just really, really active water holes. Because there isn't as much open space, the game is all concentrated around the variety of water holes in the area, as well as beautiful views from the top of those kopis as well. So very, very different to the open plains, as you'll see, of the southern part of Hwange, where Bomani and Camelthorn are located. You can also depart out of the Imvelo gate here, which actually cuts a little bit of time out. So for departures is a good way, and also you can explore the far north, the Cinematilla area of Hwange National Park. This is a public area, so there are self-drivers in the area. The Nehimba concession is about 8,000 square acres, so there's a lot that can be done just within their own concession. And frankly, you don't see very many other vehicles, even in the self-drive areas. This is not Kruger National Park by any means, so just to be aware of that. Nehimba is set on a really productive, beautiful water hole. It is known for its massive herds of elephants during the dry season. The interior of the lodge, very comfortable, very African feel, looks out over this water hole. There's actually a swimming pool there. You can see the downed trees that are trying to protect the swimming pool. Nehimba, one of the spots in Hwange where you can see elephants drinking out of the swimming pool. And Somalisa is the other one in southern Hwange. So kind of a unique feature. I think, in fact, Imvelo is going to put a smaller trough for the elephants to drink in front of that pool to kind of keep them out of the swimming pool. It's more of a gimmick than anything else, and we would like people to be able to safely use the swimming pool instead of it being an alternative drinking trough for elephants. But definitely a unique feature, and it draws lots and lots of elephants in the dry season. 7 of these tented, thatched chalets with huge decks, all of which overlook the water hole. 2 of them are family rooms. This is one of them. So you have a queen size, I think it's a queen plus size bed, may even be a king, and then a double bed for the kids. Bathroom at the back, and then an outdoor shower is available for all of the units. So each one is different, so make sure when you're talking to the Imvelo reservations team that you give them very specific instructions on, or ask the questions about which of the units is available, because they all have a little bit of a different configuration. But those 2 family units are really massive and great for family safaris, obviously. There's a little deck as well in front of that swimming pool where you can sit and have a drink and share a drink with the elephants, really. As I said, 7 tents, 2 family units, the private concession. Lots to do within the concession itself. There's a beautiful hide, the Nehimba hide, and the Nehimba seep, which is actually one of the few natural water sources in Hwange National Park. We'll show you later in the presentation, but Hwange is in many ways an artificial environment created back in the 1920s by the original ranger. There are pumped water holes, and most of these elephants live off of pumped water. In the Nehimba concession, there's actually one of the few natural water sources, a seep, where water kind of seeps, as indicated by the name. So a unique feature there. And there are some ruins from the 19th century ruins from the previous inhabitants, I think the sand bushmen in the area, nearby, not on the concession itself, but kind of a unique historical feature for those that are interested in that as well. There is Wi-Fi, as I said, that swimming pool, and again, the rack rate aligns well with Zambezi sands and with Camelthorn at 532, but also offering that stay 3, pay 2 for the rest of 2015. So again, a great value, and that's an excellent combination, a really comprehensive Zimbabwe experience. Zambezi sands, Nehimba, and Camelthorn. They match up well in terms of level of accommodation, and the rates all are matching as well, and you have that stay 3, pay 2. So you could do a stay 9, pay 6, do 3 nights at each property, and have an exceptional Zimbabwe experience. Here's the layout of Nehimba with all 7 of the tented chalets around the water hole with a pool and main dining area, main lodge area in the center there. Okay, so we're going to head farther south down into the southern part of Hwange National Park. This is where Imvelo really cut their teeth on safaris, as it were. Their first 2 properties were built, the Bomani Tented Lodge, built in the far southeast corner of Hwange National Park here. You can see where my mouse is. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. I'm going to zoom in here in a second. And Nehimba is up here. So if you're driving, in terms of transfers, driving from the falls, here's the Falls Road. If you're going to Nehimba or most of the other properties in Hwange, you will continue on to Hwange Main Camp and then onward to Nehimba or onward to the Hyde or to the Soma Mesa camps in this area. If you're going to Bomani and Camelthorn and you're doing a road transfer, you'll continue on past Hwange Main Camp to Halfway Hotel, which is halfway because it's halfway between Bulawayo and Victoria Falls. And from there, it's a safari vehicle takes you through the Ngamo Forest to Bomani or to Camelthorn. And this is about 2.5 hours on the tarmac road, a very good tarmac road, to Halfway Hotel, and then another 1.5 to 2 hours through the Ngamo Forest to camp. So zooming in here a little bit closer, try that again. You can see there from Halfway Hotel through the forest. They're both located on the southeast corner of Hwange National Park, and both are located right on the edge of the park. They're not inside the park, and the reason for this is twofold. One of which, in Bomani, it's a private concession, and it allows us, being outside the park, to do bush dinners, to do night drives. And Camelthorn is built on community land, like Gorges Lodge. In both cases, the idea is to have a smaller environmental footprint within the park and to really engage and activate the community development and economic opportunities for local villages around those lodges. So not only employment-wise, but also giving those villages the economic incentives to support tourism and to preserve wildlife. So we're building schools, we're building teachers' cottages, drilling water holes. There's been 66 or some odd water holes that Imvelo has drilled for communities in the southern part of Hwange National Park over the past 5 years. So there's a really symbiotic relationship that's developed, a really strong relationship that's developed between these 2 lodges and the local communities. And it has resulted in an area that is now rich in wildlife. What poaching existed here 10 or 15 years ago, because there was no or very little tourism in the area, has really diminished almost entirely. And because people now see the wildlife as a benefit versus as just a nuisance. Obviously, for local villages bordering a game park, a national park in Africa, you are going to see lions, you are going to see elephants, and lions kill livestock, and elephants trample crops. So what was a nuisance, they are now willing to put up with a little bit of that nuisance because of the economic benefits that are being brought to the table by the lodges here in the southern part of the park. Okay, so moving along quickly, we're a little bit behind schedule here, so I'm going to pick up the pace a bit. You can fly down to Bomani and Camelthorn. There's a airstrip right at Bomani, and 5 minutes from camp, about 15, 20 minutes from Camelthorn, and that's a beautiful flight. Seat and plane rates run about $450. Obviously, if you get a larger group, that the economies of scale bring down that price considerably. But when you consider that the rack rate at Bomani is about $330, the rack rate at Camelthorn is $530, that $450 seat and plane rate, when you package it up in a larger safari, really is not significant. So we do recommend, if you have the budget, to consider doing a flight either coming into the lodge or going out, just because it's a spectacular way to see this amazing 5,000 square mile park. Minibuses, pickups, if you're using Imvelo to manage the entire safari. These are the example of the cruiser buses that we have picking up from Victoria Falls or from Bulawayo Airport. Of course, if you're using your own DMC, then it would be they would be managing most likely those transfers between Victoria Falls and Hwange Main Gate or Halfway Hotel. We also have these Toyota Land Cruiser station wagons for those, if we're doing any sort of longer transfer within the park, like say from Camelthorn to Nehimba, just a little bit more of a comfortable way to go because it is a long drive through the park versus being in an open game viewing vehicle. And now the most exciting thing, I think, in terms of transportation is the Elephant Express. This is Imvelo's brand new, just began running about a month ago, trolley car transfer that goes from Hwange Main Gate down to Bomani and Camelthorn. It is one of the most unique and exciting safari experiences that you'll ever have in Africa. I mean, where else can you game view from a train car? For those of you who don't know, the Hwange National Park, I'm going to get to a map here and then I'll go back. You can see this is the rail line, and this is the rail line that Rhodes built back in 1904 all the way up to Victoria Falls, and it demarcates the eastern boundary of Hwange National Park. So the Elephant Express, actually, you embark here at Mpofu Siding, which is a little station that's off the main rail line, and it's about 70K from Mpofu to Bomani and Camelthorn. That takes, generally speaking, from 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on the game viewing that you're doing, because there is a lot of game along the railway line, and it's a pretty thrilling experience to be standing there watching elephants and planes game, and the occasional lion from a rail car. Really kind of a throwback to the old out of Africa days, back to the days of Rhodes when he was trailblazing through southern Africa. Really comfortable, as you can see, it seats about 20 people. There are tiki tables with drink holders. So usually we do, when arriving, sundowners, or not sundowners, but drinks on the train, champagne for arrival, and some appetizers. As far as safety goes, as you can see, the line is incredibly straight. There are other trains that run on this line. We have 2 engineers who have 33 and 32 years with the Zimbabwean Railways, so they know all the train drivers. We're connected to air traffic control, as it were, train traffic control. And in point of fact, you can see about 30K down the railway line. So it is dead straight, as you can see on this picture, from Mpofu Siding all the way to Bomani. And there are 7 sidings, 7 areas where trains can pull off. And occasionally we do have to pull off to allow a passenger train or a freight train to come through. And again, an incredibly different and unique safari experience, and one that I think travelers so far have really embraced and are absolutely loving. You can see you get good game from the train as well. Okay, Bomani Tented Lodge. This was the poster child for New York Times 52 best places, 52 places to go in 2015. Located on the Ngamo Plain. This is a late dry season shot. As you can see, all of the grass has been eaten down. This is just outside the park, about a 5-minute drive, 15, 20-minute walk to the park gate. And even outside the park, late dry season, there's so much wildlife in the area on our concession and in the national park that the grass is completely eaten down. So there is, in point of fact, we can't have any more wildlife in this area because there isn't enough food to support them all at the end of the dry season. This is a shot looking at one of the hornbill tents. You can see all of the grass has been eaten down. This is just outside the park, about a 5-minute drive, 15, 20-minute walk to the park gate. And even outside the park, late dry season, there's so much wildlife in this area that the grass is completely eaten down. So there is, in point of fact, we can't have any more wildlife in this area because there isn't enough food to support them all at the end of the dry season. This is a shot looking at one of the hornbill tents. and this is the interior of the honeymoon suite at Imvelo. Their tents are massive. 4 of them are located ground level overlooking the waterhole, and 5 of them look out over the Ngamo Plain. This is the interior of one of the spur wing tents. Huge lounge area, a couple of different configurations for bedding, and then actually right behind me in the shot would be the bathroom, attached bath. This is one of the hornbill tents, slightly smaller, raised up, kind of one of those old Serengeti-style raised teak deck tented units with a bath as well at the back. Again, being in a private concession, we do a lot of outdoor dining, bush dinners at a nearby waterhole. It's something that really makes the experience very special to be sipping your soup as elephants are sipping water in the waterhole next to you, or hippos are wallowing in the waterhole. It's an only in Africa type of experience. Night drives also possible on the Bomani concession as well, because it is a private concession. As I said, 9 tents. There is also a family suite which is fully enclosed, actually has air conditioning as well. Drives, walks, and then the village visits, which you'll see in a minute. Very important part of the experience at Bomani. There is Wi-Fi in the main lodge, and then the rack rate, from 333, that is for the hornbills. The spur wings go up to about 370, and the family suite, I believe, is 390. So again, still an incredible value. Here's the layout of the lodge. You can see the spur wings on the left and the hornbills on the right, with the water hole just next to the main lodge area. And as I said, this is a 5-minute drive to our own gate into Bomani, into Hwange National Park. We're the only vehicles that use that gate. And then from a walk, you can do a walk within the concession, and then you arrive at that at the railway line, and then walk into the national park from Bomani there. Just about 10-20 minutes away from Bomani, around that corner, is Camelthorn. And Camelthorn Lodge is an important community-based project as well. As I said, Gorges being being the first in Zimbabwe, and Camelthorn is one of the newest. Butch always puts this slide in because it really illustrates an important point. When Camelthorn was being built, there were 83, give or take, workers that were helping to build the lodge. 63 of those had never worked a day in their lives. And these are men and women that are in their mid-30s. So you can imagine the power of a 35-year-old man bringing home pay for the first time to his family. I mean, it's just an incredible, empowering feeling to have a job for the first time. And so this is what these lodges, this is what they mean to this community. The other fact of this lodge is it's built on community land, and the community wanted a permanent structure. They wanted, I think the headman of the village said, we want a lodge that will be here for our children's children. So instead of building tents, they built stone villas, and you'll see the picture here. But that was a request from the community. There's also a practical reason for that, which I'll share with you. This is the main lodge. A little bit different. Camelthorn is built in a woodland area instead of around a water hole. The reason they didn't put water here is because if you put water, the elephants will come and they'll destroy one of the last really beautiful virgin woodlands in the Hwange Park area. So they set instead the lodge around this expansive camelthorn tree. Very nice upmarket and very African feel to the interiors of the lodge. Very comfortable. And they all have this great view of the camelthorn. Underneath that camelthorn tree, having an outdoor dinner or drinks in the evening is just a magical experience with the paraffin lights hanging from the trees. And just beyond the tree, there's actually a boma area as well, which opens up and you can see the night sky, and the stars in this part of Hwange are just absolutely incredible as well. Here's the interior. One of the other things is that Hwange gets very hot during the wet season, during the rainy season, during their summer, and very cool during the winter. So they built these stone villas, and they built this lodge purposefully to allow for you have sliding doors that you can close during the cold winter months or the hot summer months. You also have gauze or a screen that you can keep closed. So for during the wet season, when it's a little bit warm and there are more bugs around, you can keep bugs out. People can enjoy they're dining inside of the lodge. And then in the wintertime, when it's cold, Hwange gets down close to freezing in the July, the peak of the winter months in July. You can come inside. There are 3 fireplaces. You can warm up this lodge into a beautiful, very warm feeling and enjoy your meal without having to, if you're dining outside, oftentimes in the middle of winter, you eat your dinner really quickly and then run to the fire to try to stay warm to have your after-dinner drinks. So this is, again, purposefully done both for the community purpose as well as for practical purposes because of the weather extremes. Here's one of the forest villas. There are 8 of these at Camelthorn, all tucked into this really beautiful woodland. That's the deck above, looking down into that window there. And this deck actually, great spot for siestas, for lounging in that hammock, also for star beds, or for an outdoor sleeping experience. We can take a bed up here for people that want to have a star bed experience. Looking down through that window into the room, very comfortable, beautiful, well-appointed villa here there's a lounge to the bottom of that picture with a fireplace. This is the queen bed configuration, the bathroom through the door in the upper left. Here's the twin bedded configuration. And you can see the fireplace there, as well as that box on the, basically the center right. That is a coffee caddy. So in the morning, your guest coffee is delivered into that caddy as well. So they can enjoy some coffee and little breakfast snacks on their private patio before they head off to the main lodge for their activity. But in the winter time, when it's cold, when it's nearly freezing, you can close up the glass screens of these chalets, and the temperature with the fireplace going warms right up. You can walk around in bare feet and in your pajamas and not be cold. Whereas in tents, Bomani in the cold winter nights, you put 2 or 3 hot water bottles into those beds, and they still are pretty cold when you wake up the next morning and you run to your shower to get warm. So just a different, experience for those that really want to have the sounds of nature and want to hear the lions roaring at night and hear the elephants trumpeting and don't mind being a little bit chilly in the cold winter months. Then the tented experience, of course, is an incredible safari experience. For those that are a little bit concerned, maybe for families, about having their kids in a tent with all the wildlife around, being in this woodland and being in these more solid stone accommodations that are warmer as well during the winter may be the better alternative. Just a matter of taste, a matter of preference, and a matter of the type of clients that you are booking. So something to definitely ask me or ask the Imvelo team about as you're putting together your safari. Bathroom here with a beautiful big soaker tub. As I said, there are 8 villas. There will be a family unit, just like at Zambezi Sands, to be built hopefully by the late 2015. And that will also be in-suite bedrooms with a connected lounge in the middle. This is built, as I said, in community land in this beautiful lush woodlands right on the edge of the Ngamo Plains. Drives, walks, village visits, and I'll show you here shortly a lookup line. What they wanted to do, because there wasn't a water hole at the lodge itself, was to have a really incredible safari experience just a stone's throw away. So about 800 meters from Camelthorn is one of the most, if not the most, exceptional safari game blinds in Africa. This is the layout of Camelthorn, 532 racks, just like Zambezi Sands and Nehimba. And the 8 units are all tucked into this beautiful woodland. Very private, very exclusive feeling. You don't see any of your neighbors, and you're really kind of enclosed in this woodland paradise. So this is that water hole I'm talking about with the blinds. This is Stokey's Pan. It's about 800 meters. Here's the woodland, Camelthorn. You can see my mouse is over in this area. So for a drive, it takes 10 minutes. If you're walking, it takes 20 to 25 minutes into the park, and you end up at Stokey's Pan. And right here under this acacia tree is a incredible underground blind. It's a 25-foot shipping container that has been buried and kitted out with a flush toilet and plumbed for a flush toilet, as well as these flaps to keep out any of the creepy crawlers that oftentimes you find in underground blinds, and then disguised on the top as an ant heap. You can see there's the entrance from terra firma down into the underground blind, and it's massive. I mean, it's a shipping container. We actually usually often have lunches here, sundowners here. These folks are having cheeseburger lunch while they watch the elephants, and these are the kind of views that you get and the photographs that you can get from the blind. Very good and safe for kids because you're close to the animals, but you're protected in this steel shipping container underground, and yet you can have this incredible experience with an elephant that's really only 10 to 20 feet away from you. You can see on this point and shoot the toenail blind photography that this woman is getting. That's how close you are, and that's not with a super zoom by any means. National Geographic level photography from this blind. Very unique, very special experience. This is only available with this amount of wildlife during the dry season because that's when all of the elephants and the game are coming to these pumped water holes. During the green season, you can go to this blind, but it's not going to have the same level of photography experience because the water, the elephants and the game are more dispersed throughout the park because there is more water available. Classic Hwange shots, sundowners with the elephants at a water hole. But there's a lot of other game. The Ngamo Plain, one of the largest plains in Hwange. So you have a great cheetah. We have regular sightings, probably 4 or 5 times a week of cheetah on the Ngamo Plain, and beautiful area for and habitat for cheetah because of the open plains and the woodlands where they can spend some time waiting for their prey. The Bomani boys, these are Bomani brothers, they're seeing lions nearly every day, and there's a pride of 3 male lions with a number of females in the area as well. The cheetah and the lions actually spend a lot of time on the Bomani concession as well as in the national park. So the game crosses back and forth across the railway line. It's not a barrier. All these animals have grown up with that railway line because it was built in 1904. So it's been part of their experience. It's not an issue for them. Beautiful lion. Of course, walking, as you can do, as I said, with Zambezi Sands, walking is definitely a must-do with a Zimbabwean pro guide. Imvelo, Mark Butcher, the founder, director, is a Zimbabwean pro guide from many years ago, and he actually spends a lot of his time in the field guiding clients. You can request a private guide as well throughout the safari to have your own pro guide throughout the trip if that's something of interest. So that's just a request to the reservations team. But walking really gets you obviously closer and more intimate with the wildlife. But these Zimbabwean pro guides have been the amount of training and what they have to go through to become a guide that's licensed to walk is absolutely extraordinary. There are only something like 200 and some odd pro guides in the world, and it's because it is such an intense training program. And it should be because you are, you're walking, in relatively close proximity to dangerous game. But these guys know know wildlife, know animal behavior incredibly well, and are very safe in how they manage groups and how they manage those that are walking with them. But I mean, the photography experience. Look at that. It's just you're standing there looking at these elephants from 100 meters away. Really special experience. Night drives, Genet Cats, Bomani concession. You can do night drives, and Genets are a common sight in the evenings. This is, I alluded to this, but Hwange the wildlife survives off pumped water. So, Cliff Notes version of the story, Ted Davison back in 1920, the first warden of Hwange National Park, he came to Hwange and loved the elephants and loved the wildlife when they had gazetted the park, but realized that in the wet season, in the rainy season, that the wildlife dispersed as the water was more plentiful throughout the park, and they would head off toward the Zambezi River and the Chobe River and other areas. And of course, as human populations began to build up around the park, they got into more and more conflict with wildlife. So in order to keep his beloved elephants and the other wildlife within the park boundaries, or to attempt to do that throughout the year, he would drill water holes. And this was an attempt to, during the dry season, I should say. It wasn't the wet season. The dry season, the elephants would go off and the animals would go off in search of water because all of the natural pans had dried up. So instead of allowing that to happen, they drilled water holes. Originally, they were pumped by windmills. This kept the animals in Hwange during the dry season around these water holes. Eventually, the elephant numbers, the animal numbers had built up to such a degree that the windmills couldn't keep up, and so they were replaced by diesel engines in the 60s and 70s. So currently, Imvelo is responsible for maintaining 8, maybe now 10 water holes. And this is a huge job and a very time-intensive and very financially intensive job during the dry season, especially the late part of the season. You see this picture here, there's very, very little food left. And obviously this is the only source of water, these water holes that are pumped left within the park. So it's a critical, of critical importance to keep the wildlife alive that these water holes are kept operating. So what Imvelo did to kind of, make this, weird kind of human-created wildlife experience kind of more unique was to involve the guests in the maintenance of these water holes. So during the dry season, Imvelo has what they call a pump run, which is an all-day safari into the park, and you go water hole to water hole with the Imvelo team helping to maintain those water holes. So you actually go out there. There are 2 pump attendants that live for 6 to 8 months, depending on how long the dry season is, at each water hole and keep them running so that the animals have water. And every few weeks or every month or so, an Imvelo team heads out there with more diesel to help service the engines and to pay the pump attendants. So guests get to come along and participate in this, unique conservation exercise that Imvelo is doing throughout the park. Usually this culminates with a bush lunch somewhere deep into the park. You're not going to see any other vehicles. You really won't see any other vehicles on the Nehimba Plain when you're staying at Camelthorn or Bomani. But certainly when you're on a pump run heading way off into the park, the only vehicle you will see is the one you're riding in. So a bush lunch, maybe a walk based from that water hole where you're having the lunch, and then head back to camp late in the evening. Lots of other game as well, and again, they all are dependent upon these water holes. Great buffalo herds. As you can see, again, this is a late dry season picture, not much food left. Jackal, hyena, sable, one of the unique species in southern Hwange. You will see sable 3-4 times a week. Kudu. There are hippos that have now are resident to these water holes because they've been around now for over almost 100 years. Great herds of zebra and wildebeest on these plains. And giraffe. This is a giraffe and a Cory buzzard. You can see, again, how much little food is left at the end of the dry season. On the flip side, Hwange during the green season is spectacular as well. There are less concentration of game, but the landscape is beautiful. Green, it's just there in March. The photography opportunities are incredible. Hwange ends up looking like the Okavango Delta, as you can see here, with the amount of water that's available to the elephants. That does mean that the game, of course, is more dispersed, so you won't see them in as great a numbers. But it's a spectacular, verdant paradise, really. Crowned cranes with a new fledgling crane. Lots of great birding as well during the green season, starting in about November when the rains come up until March, early to mid-March is when the rains, generally speaking, end. You have incredible birds, both migratory species as well as resident species from Hwange. Here's this is about a March, April Nehimba Plain picture. You can see a big fat pregnant lioness with some wildebeest in the background and the Nehimba forest behind. Coming soon as well, later this year, Jozibanini Adventure Camp. It's a very small camp just for the really adventurous. The concept is that you would do it as a 2-day add-on from Camelthorn or Bomani, and you would get out to Jozibanini via a pump run because it is very, very far deep into the park. I was just there with Butch scouting mountain bike trails as well. There are these solid elephant paths that are from Jozibanini where you can have a great mountain biking experience, basically riding from pan to pan, from water hole to water hole just outside Jozibanini. This is the Jozibanini pan. There's going to be a lookout blind here as well. So adventurers and photographers, adventurers, mountain biking from about March, April, May will be exceptional as the elephants and the game are still traversing those natural pans. And then for photographers, August, September, October, when when this pan is the only water left, the number of elephants will be extraordinary. This is just a map showing from Bomani and Camelthorn. Basically, the pump run, if you follow my mouse, goes along, hopping from all these different water holes to water holes. This is about 112 kilometers into the park out to Jozibanini camp here. So usually the pump run would end, I believe, right about out here, and then the guests would have lunch and continue on back to Bomani or Camelthorn. If they're going to Jozi, they would just have lunch and then continue on and spend the night at Jozi camp. Jozi will be, at least initially, 2 raised teak adventure, kind of fly camping almost, with a star bed. The idea is to have a bed on wheels and wheel it out onto a large deck, a large view deck that overlooks the pan, and the stars at night are absolutely incredible. And there we are 2 weeks ago, scouting mountain bike safaris in Jozi. There is a resident pack now called the Jozi Pack of Wild Dogs, who teased us. We saw their tracks, never did see them. And lastly here, this is a really unique feature and what makes Imvelo is the community and conservation that is connected. And I told you a little bit about Bomani and Camelthorn, their location being built on community land on the edge of the national park. Gorges as well being built on community land. This is something that is very close to the heart of the entire Imvelo team, is connecting the local communities. Doing a village visit, again, like the one at Gorges, very unchoreographed, done by, this is Busa, who is a product as well of the local village, the Ngamo village, and Busa is now a learner guide, working his way up to eventually be a professional guide. So Busa takes guests to see his family home, to see his grandfather plowing the fields, to see into his mother's home making some millet, pounding millet, and it's just a very unchoreographed, real experience. And Busa, as you can imagine, as a product of this community, is a rock star now. I mean, he's learning to be a professional guide, and he's passing along that respect and that appreciation for wildlife to the local communities. A school visit is also always a big part of the village visit. And again, just like at Gorges, demystifying the international tourist and connecting them, showing them to be real people for the kids. It's also fun when we were there, a week ago. It's an interactive experience in that these kids, it's important for them to learn English. English is the national language. But at home, they don't speak it very often. At school, they learn it and they begin to speak it more and more. But it's great for them to be able to practice with a native speaker. Then the kids also, we usually do this exercise where the kids have to teach the tourists, the visitors, Indabelli. And Indabelli is a click language, so it's a hilarious interaction between the kids who just can't understand how you couldn't possibly make that a very difficult click because, of course, they've grown up with it. So very interactive experience. Here's an example of a Mugabe well. Mugabe, the central government, we haven't talked a lot about this, but effectively they have abandoned much of northwest Zimbabwe because it traditionally has been an opposition country. So very few social services are provided to the area. This is a well that was left to run dry in one of the local villages near Bomani and Camelthorn. So Imvelo, as I said, has drilled 66 of these wells through various communities along that southeastern border of the park. Here's one of them, and a brand new well now that's thanks to the tourism in the area, not thanks to the central government. So money, again, staying within the local community, helping to provide social services that the central government just refuses to do or can't provide because they also don't have the budget. And the NGOs, of course, in the area are present but also stretched very thin. Brand new teachers' accommodations, and as you can see, there was an elephant stenciled into the roof of that teacher's cottage. And that wasn't something that Imvelo asked to be done. That was done by the roofer, who is again beginning to see the connection between preserving wildlife and economic benefits and improved quality of life for the villages. You can see the old teacher's cottage there, just a wreck. Here's an old school, incredible rock star of a teacher having to keep kids attentive in this kind of environment. Not enough desks, kids working on benches, sitting on the floor. Oftentimes, many of these classrooms don't have functioning roofs. So in the green season, they've got water coming through. During the dry season, they might be outside doing their lessons. Imvelo has built, I think, 5 schools now in the area. There's one being built This is the Ngamo School I was just at about 10 days ago. Beautiful classroom that's actually a proper learning environment for these students. Something that where they can, begin to work toward being a learner guide like Busa, or dream even bigger to being a doctor or to being a dentist. And that leads into the final part of this, is the dental safari. Another really important social service that was missing in this area was dental care. And about 4 years ago, I believe, Imvelo began working with 13 Spanish and Italian dentists to set up mobile dental clinics throughout the eastern part of Hwange National Park and up into Victoria Falls. So from going to having zero dental care for, ever, none of these patients had ever seen a dentist in their life, to now having annual dental care. Every November, these rock stars, these dental rock stars come and provide first-class, first-world dental service to the local community. Everything from extractions to cavities, root canals, I mean, the whole deal. And now it's moved into the point of preventative care. So these kids from the local school are getting checked up and getting toothbrushes, and instead of just having emergency care that was the first few years, now they're seeing annual dental care. So we might go to the dentist twice a year if we're good here in the U.S. and Canada. In Zimbabwe, they never went to the dentist, and now in this area they have annual dental care. So really extraordinary. This is the scorecard, as Butch calls it, nearly 6,000 procedures since 2012, 2011, I believe. So from, again, nothing to 6,000 patients, none of whom had ever seen dental care in their lives. So an extraordinary program that really rounds out the community development and the sustainable tourism aspects of Imvelo Safari Lodges. So it really comes back to these two things, to the communities, to the kids in these local villages. You can see this guy here is drawing a picture of an elephant. Now, an elephant probably has trampled his parents' crops on multiple occasions. It's a pest in many ways, but now they see the value of the elephant because of the economic development that's happening as a result of tourism. So that connection between the villages and the people and the wildlife and the nature is what the mission, the overarching mission of Imvelo is. And bringing tourists in to see this incredible wildlife experience while also connecting with the local community. That's what really sets Imvelo Safaris apart. So, a little bit long, I'm sorry, but hopefully that was educational and inspiring and exciting. Here's all the details for you to check out as you have time. I will send a link to this presentation out, to a recording of this presentation out, so if you want to share it with the rest of your office or watch it again, you can do that, and I will also make introductions to the Imvelo Safaris team. Imvelo works with all the DMCs in Southern Africa, great relationships with probably all of them that they've been in contact with, so you can book their properties through your own DM. If you don't have a DMC and you'd like to work directly with Imvelo, that's fine as well. The reservations team, led by Sean, would be your first point of contact. Marketing and sales team, the two Haleys, and there's actually now a third Haley in the office, so don't get too confused. And then myself as the North American sales rep, and Mark Butcher. Butch is, many of you have probably met on our sales trips throughout North America the last couple of years. Incredible, inspiring man. If you're going to be at We Are Africa, Butch will be there. And Imvelo is up for one of the Innovator Awards for Engage Africa. So this whole community-based program I just talked to you about, from the dental safari to the schools to the water holes, that is their program. That is one of 5 finalists for that Engage Africa innovation. If you are going to We Are Africa, you have the opportunity to vote on that, I think beforehand. So make sure, we'd love to have your vote early, vote often, as the Kennedys used to say. And if you're going to be at Indaba, the two Haleys and Sean and myself will be there. I think Butch may be there for a day or two, so we'd love to see you and connect and learn, give you more detail about what's happening with Imvelo in the coming months. So thank you again for your attention, and I will open this up now to questions. I'm going to take Mark off mute, and I'm sorry, Butch, Butch, I'm sorry I talked so long and rambled on. I don't know if you want to say anything if you're still there.
Absolutely, Tad. Well done and thank you. I think you told the story very, very well. Thanks a million. Well done.
Well, thank you, Butch. I appreciate it. And again, we'll have all of those email addresses going out to all of you that are attending, and you can email Butch directly. He is in the field quite often, as you can see. He was out guiding a trip today and guiding guests at Bomani. So Haley, the two Haleys, Haley Plaskett, Haley Freeland, and Sean are in the office on a regular basis. Unfortunately for them, they're not out on safari as much. So they're your best point of contact, but always feel free to email Butch, and he will get back to you when he is in the office. Okay, I'm going to look at a few questions here. Nancy, yes, the tour to Vic Falls from Zambezi Sands is included. It is obviously not something that guests have to do, but it is included in that $532 rack rate. And it looks like, I guess I answered all of these questions because we don't have any others. So if you have other questions, feel free to email me or the Imvelo team, and we look forward to hosting you. Again, if you're going to be in Southern Africa in the next couple of months or anytime this year, also please get in touch. We'd love to host agents and show them around Zimbabwe and show them around the Imvelo lodges, and for you to really experience the Imvelo story and the Imvelo program. It's a very unique, very heartwarming, and very exciting program that's developing there in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I look forward to seeing you all, hopefully in person in your various cities or at one of the African trade shows in the coming months. Thanks.
Good night to all of you from Zim. Good night.
Thanks, Butch.